Hello, it's another edition of Wisdom Walks, and today we are going to explore the topic of being drawn versus driven. What does that mean for us? And how can we tune in to the magic of both of those pieces as we move forward in life? Can't wait to dive in. All right, you guys, I'm so excited about today's topic. And recently, a friend of mine, as I talked to them about, well, are you being driven or are you being drawn to get this thing done? And they found it to be so profound. And I realized that oftentimes I forget that these little golden nuggets need to be shared more. And so thank you to this beautiful friend who brought this to my attention, that there is some real potency in understanding the difference between being driven versus drawn. And so I want to take some time to really go through this topic of discussion. Sorry, I had a bit of a hill there. and talk about, well, what does it mean to be driven? What does it mean to be drawn? And I spent most of my life being very driven and trying to force things. So this driven energy is a masculine energy. It's a beautiful masculine quality. It is a big part of leadership. It's a big part of entrepreneurship. This energy of being driven is a big part of the achievements that we move through in life. And being driven is not bad. I thought it was bad for a long time because I was so driven and I was forcing and I was dysregulated and I was trying to make things happen and feeling oh so frustrated. And so this energy of being driven, again, potent, wonderful, get some fire under your ass. We want to feel that drive. However, when we start to shift the pendulum and we go from this beautiful, motivated, driving, moving energy into this forcing energy, that's when we lose the potency of being driven. That's when it becomes a shadow aspect of the masculine. Because no longer are we feeling that fire and that flame and using that as fuel. We are now using our ego to run the ship. And when we get into the driving from the ego place, we actually start to lose alignment. When we start to lose alignment, what happens is we end up going off course. We end up trying to make things happen that are actually not in harmony for us. And then we end up frustrated, burnt out, and all the other things that come along with that. So the invitation is not to end the driving. It's to know that there's a sweet spot. Am I moving forward with the spark of life, with the life force energy inside of me? Or am I moving forward because my ego is telling me I got to do a thing in order to be perceived as achieving, accomplished, successful, whatever that might be? So that question we can ask ourselves, and really testing to see if we're being driven from a shadow place or driven from divinity, is to ask the question, am I moving forward based on something in my ego and my false self? Or am I moving forward because I feel inspired and I feel moved? And so that driving energy can fuel us. But if we bring in the ego, again, it starts to actually create malalignment or disalignment. On the other side, we have being drawn. This is when we're being pulled and being led. And as you know, I love to talk about when spirit calls, when we're being led down a certain path and guided from some force maybe within us or beyond us. And so when we're being drawn, again, this can also swing too far down the pendulum line in which we are just letting ourselves being led. We're not getting involved in the process. We're just like, oh, well, where does that go? And where does that go? And sometimes we can fumble in that. So there's also the extreme to being drawn, where we then get caught up in this space of maybe being a little bit too floaty, too flighty, not being super devoted to certain pathways. And so that can also go on the extreme side, which is the shadow aspect of being drawn. Now, the being drawn energy is the feminine side, right? And so again, our goal is to find the sweet spot of being drawn. And so I like to use this beautiful combination now of both being driven, motivated, inspired with the fuel inside of my heart, but then also allowing myself to be led by certain people, certain signs, certain opportunities that flow into my life. So that we've got this beautiful hybrid of the two. I used to think that I don't want to be driven anymore, I just want to be drawn. But again, what happens if we get too far down the pendulum on being drawn, then we can actually lose some structure, and that actually can leak energy as well. And it can actually provide confusion, right? And so then we're not moving forward, or we're feeling really stuck because we're waiting to be drawn and the draw's not showing up for us, at least not in our perception. And so this is an invitation for us to really do some reflecting and some digging about, okay, where in my life am I being driven? Where in my life am I being drawn? And what is the sweet spot for me within both of those aspects? And so that is my invitation to you today as I've come to some deep reflection. I haven't been feeling very driven lately at all. And part of this is the weather change. As you can see, the leaves have fallen off the trees. And so this is that season for me of like hibernating a little bit more. And so I haven't felt as motivated, if you will, to get out there and do all the things. And so I've had to go into some deep reflection and think about, okay, where's the spark for that drive? And if I'm not seeing the spark, what is calling me in? What is it that is showing itself to me that is telling me where I need to be? And also allowing me to trust that I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And Spirit reminds me all the time, even when I think I'm in a situation that I shouldn't be in, Spirit will nudge me and say, you're exactly where you need to be. And so it goes back to that trusting that wherever we are is where we're supposed to be, but also inviting that beautiful reflection of how do I move myself forward in this life? And can I find this beautiful blend between being both driven and drawn, and perhaps allowing myself to be led through this space of divine. And divine will encourage, it will ignite and propel the spark, but divine will also call us in. And as I say that, I'm just reminded that divine is always seeking us. God is always seeking us. And I'm sure I've said that on here before, but it bears repeating. It's such a beautiful reminder for us that we're always being sought. So even when we think that we are stuck, even when we think that we are not doing what we're supposed to do, we're not being led, and we're not being, encouraged, again, that's a sweet spot too. That's a spot that we're supposed to be in to allow for some stillness and to make the room for God to come in. There's a saying that when we feel most alone, when we feel like we have been abandoned, that is actually God's invitation or divine's invitation for us to be with God. And so it's just this beautiful welcoming for us that when we don't quite know whether we're being driven or drawn, or we're feeling like we're stuck in between that liminal space, I'm not where I used to be, I'm not yet where I want to be. It's that reminder for you that God is seeking you, and that the space and so reminding you that the space is also supposed to be there and part of the process, and it's God's way of saying, I'm with you and I want to be with you and I want a relationship with you. So I could go on a tangent all day, of course, but hopefully that sparked something inside of you to really have a listen, to really lean in to that difference between being driven versus being drawn, and for you to find your sweet spot so you know exactly where you are, and reminding you you're exactly where you need to be at every given moment. That's it for now, everybody. Thanks for watching. I so appreciate your love and your support. And I hope if you haven't joined the YouTube channel, please follow our YouTube channel so you can catch all the other wisdom walks. And I want to just remind everyone, plant a seed. It's only a couple months away. Time is flying, but 7 Days of Creation runs January 1st to January 7th. And it's a wonderful, magical 7 days where we just talk to God. We go into the Akashic Records and we get insight for the year. We get foundation for us to be able to move forward and really create the best life and find our own sweet spot between being driven versus being drawn. So hopefully you guys can make it. You can sign up for that on the website, 7 Days of Creation, and hopefully I'll see you there too. In the meantime, have a wonderful month of November, and wishing you so much love as you continue to move forward in your days. Bye for now.